Yeah. Dr. Sandra did MBBS from Kasturba Medical College, Manipal, India. Post-graduation from RIOCGH, Chennai, and Arvind Eye Hospital, Coimbatore, India. She is presently consultant Department of Pediatric Ophthalmology and Business, Arvind Eye Hospital, Coimbatore. She has done clinical observations in Children's Hospital, Boston, Jules Verne Eye Institute, and Wilmer. She has authored 20 publications as first author. She has won the prestigious Prem Prakash Award. She has presented several papers in different conferences, and her special interest lies in complex business, cerebral visual impairment. Yeah, Dr. Sandra, please.
Thank you very much. I am very delighted to be a part of this conference today, and I thank Dr. Pandey and the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity. So I will be talking today about cerebral vision impairment, when and how to intervene. So let me start with a small story. This is about an 8-month-old child who was born preterm at 32 weeks with a birth weight of 2.4 kilos. He had poor visual milestones and global developmental delay. In the video, you can see the mom showing a lighted target. You can also see that there has been a lot of latency in his visual responses. And on MRI, he has been diagnosed to have periventricular leukomalacia. So the first published data on profound perceptual visual impairment in children was reported around 1995. There were few reports coming around the 80s and 90s with a lot of work done on this respect by Dr. Dutton, Dr. Jacobson, Milner, and Goodale. So this kind of visual impairment, which is brain-based, came to be given certain terminologies as cortical vision impairment, cerebral visual impairment, or brain-based visual impairment. So what exactly is the cerebral vision impairment? It is a visual dysfunction, and that cannot be attributed to disorders of the anterior visual pathways or any potentially co-occurring ocular impairment. But this dysfunction, anomaly, or injury is predominantly to the retrogeniculate visual pathways. So coming to the incidence in India, it has been fast emergence as a leading cause of visual impairment, and it is actually the most common cause of vision impairment, especially in children less than 3 years of age. And this is because of advances in neonatal care with increased survival of infants born preterm with or without perinatal insults. And this study from Madurai, you can see that the group comprising CVI, PVL, and delayed visual maturation comprises around 26% of visual impairment in children, which is even leading more than ROP. So another study, which was published by Pehre et al., which came in the Indian Journal of Ophthalmology in 2019, also lists CVI as a leading cause of profound visual impairment, especially in the very small children. And the prevalence of CVI among children is quite equal in rural and urban backgrounds, which we have to note that this is not a disease which is predominantly seen in the urban backgrounds itself. So it is leading even more than congenital cataract and ROP. India has the greatest number of preterm births, but pediatric CVI is not among the top causes of VI, probably because of lack of awareness and underdiagnosis of this condition in India. So why is it underreported? Because major studies on childhood blindness from India have not included CVI as a diagnosis. So we do not have any preliminary data on its prevalence before 3-4 years previously. So previous reports from India show that 4.6 to 24% patients are blind due to optic atrophy. Probably many of these causes could be a retrograde transsynaptic neuronal degeneration following an injury to the brain, and many causes of childhood optic atrophy in fact may have an undiagnosed CVI. And so optic atrophy is a sign that requires further investigation to find its cause, and it cannot be a diagnosis in its own right. So the disorders of CVI is mainly due to the injury in the visual cortex and because of the problems with the connection in the visual association areas. So because of these widespread issues, you have problems with the ventral stream being affected or the dorsal stream being affected. The ventral stream disorders impairs recognition of objects, faces, words, colors, and shapes. So it's mainly a word pathology. Whereas the dorsal stream is where you have optic ataxia, that is visually guided reach is not there, simultagnosia, where you cannot use two visual sensations, or you cannot see multiple objects at the same time, or you cannot use your vision and hearing at the same time, apraxia of gaze, and lower visual field defects. So, how do you diagnose this condition in children? When the child's vision impairment cannot be explained by ocular evaluation, which is essentially normal, there is an eventful perinatal period. There is presence of neurological problems with or without global developmental delays, and there are a lot of characteristics which are unique to CVI, which includes visual latency, means you show a target and there is a lag by the time the child will look. It will not look immediately at the object. Color preference, usually the child will prefer red or yellow colors. Field preference, many times there may be a down gaze defect, light gazing, difficulty with visual complexity, and it sees better with simple backgrounds, moves better, sees moving objects better. Optic ataxia, that is visually guided reach, is not there, and difficulty with novelty. And in addition, many other issues including facial recognition, recognizing people, interpreting expressions, route finding, inability to do multiple tasks simultaneously, and simultagnosia. So the spectrum of visual difficulties can range actually from profound visual impairment, which is termed as low functioning CVI, to cases where there is near normal visual acuity but significant cognitive visual dysfunction, that is in high functioning CVI. So why is the treatment difficult? Because of the complicated and diffuse brain pathology, and also includes a lot of comorbidities, including delayed speech, motor abilities, and in higher functioning children with CVI, they may be poorly recognized or poorly characterized. In multiple disability also, it is difficult to recognize CVI. The extent and location of brain injury is variable, hard to predict the functional outcome, and every time we have to design an individualized intervention. But it's also important to know that early recognition, early initiation of therapy, and continuum of care are extremely important. So treating children with CVI is oftentimes a team approach, which includes a pediatrician, an ophthalmologist, neurologist, occupational therapist, teachers, and early childhood specialists. So strategies to diagnose. Please, if there are any red flags in perinatal medical history, these kids have to be kept on the high alert, which includes hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, which is among the leading cause of severe neonatal hypoglycemia, which can occur even in term babies, epilepsy, hydrocephalus, focal brain lesions, non-accidental injuries, infections including meningitis, encephalitis, brain malformations, metabolic and genetic causes. So you can have a screening questionnaires looking for visual responses whenever the parents come with such a complaint. Does the child follow people's movements? Do they react to somebody approaching quietly? Do they react when the lights are being turned on or off? Do they return a silent smile? Can they reach for food through vision? Can they reach for a bottle or a toy left near them? Do they look at a reflection of self in a mirror? Do they reach for objects silently? So, and also whether some areas of visual field give better responses than adults, whether auditory distractions can interfere with vision, do they look at moving targets more easily than stationary targets, and how long can the child maintain the visual attention? So these are kind of questions that we ask whenever the parents come with a problem. And also rapid assessment include questions with difficulties in walking downstairs. So it may be necessary to put pointers on the steps because of the down gaze defect. Locating a particular item in a pile like cloth, copying words, drawings, etc. So the components of the eye exam, which are important in CVI, initially for the very young babies, we do the preferential looking test, which include the Tellers or the Lea gratings, comprehensive eye exam, which will also include ocular motility, a dynamic retinoscopy, and to check for the accommodative response, because many of these kids have poor accommodation and they may need a plus class, visual fields, strabismus, nystagmus, color vision, contrast, saccades, pursuits, cycloplegic retinoscopy, and fundus evaluation. How early is early? There are reports of even children having measurable Teller's acuity even in the NICU. So as soon as you suspect, it is better to start measuring these. So the facial expression is the ventral stream defect. So it is important to show these facial expressions and see whether the child can react to them. Lia mailbox, Lia puzzles, and Lia shapes will help to know whether the child has any problem in direction orientation, and can they recognize vertical and horizontal. And also when you want them to look at, when you want to train the vision, it is always better to use a simple background. And so fixation behavior with the Lia paddles and Lia gratings, the Lia mailbox test, the puzzle test, the hiding low contrast face test, because that will give you an indication of the distance with which the face can be seen, so the mom can keep the kid in that direction, in that distance when she is talking or conversing with the child. Color and visual field preferences. So the interventions, when the child is in the phase 1, where they do not see any objects and they see only lighted toys in a dark background, so you can use single illuminated toys, red or yellow colors, in a preferably a darker area or an area where there is a very plain background, and always supplement with tactile sense or sound, use of sensory tent, increasing contrast, and teaching simple words, and always pair the touch and language. When the children come to phase 2 or 3, we can include mirror play, siblings play, motility training, integrating with play, self-care, and other daily activities. And in non-verbal children, we always ask them to train on eye-gaze choice making as a means of communication. And those kids who have poor accommodation, we always prescribe the hyperopic glasses, which will also help to aid in magnification. So as the attention systems improve, the brain can definitely provide alternative pathways to process the information. We have seen many children who had come in with inconsistent response to light, and with continued therapy, they progress to have functional vision, mobility, and even reading. So it is always important to train the vision in the context of key areas of normal development, and not just visual stimulation in isolation. So prepare the child. Posturing is very important, because a child who doesn't have good motor stability, you have to support the child. Even tummy time is a good way to train the child when they have some amount of head holding. Use descriptive language. Do not speak complex sentences. Enhance facial contrast in the mother by using makeup or a shawl or something, so that you can highlight the contrast in the face. Even wearing spectacles is suggested. Toys that can match the threshold of vision should be used. Use simple backgrounds, and also try to get multisensory stimulation, including auditory or touch, to help these kids. So do not use a room which is fully cluttered. The child will not be able to see in such an environment. So it is better to arrange the clothes or toys. Similarly, with the toys, use single toys in simple backgrounds. And even for the bed sheet, it is suggested that you use a simple background and the curtains in the child's room. So when you come to literacy, use simple picture books, clutter-free, color to highlight, and also you can use line markers. So with regard to the impact of COVID-19, in the past 1 year, we have been having a lot of difficulty in the child with CVI and such motor disabilities meeting the doctors and therapists. So we had done a study on telehealth, where initial diagnosis will be in the clinic, and for the follow-ups, we have been using telehealth on the Zoom platform, where we send the questionnaire and do the online assessments. So these are the kind of videos that we have got from the children's parents who record their visual performance at home. All these children are at different phases of CVI, and they have shown remarkable improvement over the year or two that we have been following them continuously. You can see that we encourage the children to have take their own food. They explore the outdoor environment, enjoy playtime with their siblings, simple activities like taking the rice and putting in a cup, and all these can be used as encouraging. And you can see that the functional vision in these children, around 30 children were on the follow-up, and many of them have progressed from level 1 or 2 of Hoyts to level 5, 6, or even 7. So additional benefits are that it is cost effective. We don't have to, especially many of our parents come from neighboring states and they cannot cross the border because of the COVID restrictions. So it gives additional support when we give the follow-ups online to these patients. So the goals are early identification, assess the functional vision, and understand always what the child is seeing, and use that information to structure the environment and characterize the visual dysfunction, and use that instruction to enhance the learning, social skills, and mobility. So this is the child that we saw initially. You can see now that he can eat by himself. He enjoys looking at himself in the mirror, and he's accepting classes. And this is the questionnaire where we have had 4 follow-ups, and the child has shown remarkable improvement over the last 2 years. So the need of the hour is to equip ophthalmologists with necessary skills to diagnose this condition, also develop partnership with various specialists. And also the Government of India has established the district early intervention programs, which are available in many states, and it is necessary to be aware of this facility so that we can appropriately refer the kids there. So disabilities due to severe, obscure, often missed, and the resultant problems may be disabling. But recognition and habilitation are essential to prevent long-term educational and social disadvantage of the affected children. Thank you.